Hey, this is Matt once again. What about the other videos? The paid request this time for Yule. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in me doing a review or to be a re-review, because I could always do it better. Don't mind talking about a film again, because again, I could always put either more insight or come at it from a different point of view or something, or topic or randomness, reaction, commentary, what have you. Feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. Now, Quantum of Solace is the film we're talking about, which is the second Daniel Craig James Bond film. Came out in 2008. And it's a film I never hated. I don't mind the film. I do think it's at the very least a time waster. It's not one of the better Bond films. It's not one of the better Daniel Craig films. I will put Casino Royale above it. I would put Skyfall above it. But at the same time, there is stuff that I do like about it. But there are some big pressing issues as well. Now, it's directed by Marc Forster. This is the guy that was not the right guy to direct this, because he did Monsters Ball. He did the Johnny Depp Finding Neverland, I think the guy who wrote the Peter Pan story, something like that. He also did, I want to say, Stranger Than Fiction. He would go on to do World War Z, but I know that got some re-editing. The whole finale was directed. I don't know if it was directed by Marc Forster as well, or if someone else directed that third act, but that got changed up a bit. And I would say so far, that would be his best film, because I like World War Z. But this is a time when the Bourne films, the Bourne Identity films, and their influence was badly felt on the action genre, because a lot of other movies try to have that type of style, spastic, quick editing, where shots will last 1.5 seconds, if that. And that is this movie, the crippling flaw of this movie is the editing. And that's why I can't call the film underrated. I can't, defend the film. But I just say that I like Daniel Craig as James Bond. I do. I liked his seriousness. I think he's got a good look and presence. I think he has the right voice for it. I always liked him as Bond. Ever since I first saw him in Casino Royale, I'm like, this guy's impressive. I even liked him in stuff like Cowboys and Aliens. I think is that film I will defend. Cowboys and Aliens, I think, is a very fun, underrated movie. I haven't liked the one he did called Dream House. I know I'm alone in that, but I did like that movie. He wasn't bad in Knives Out, and I'm not the biggest fan of that movie, but he wasn't the problem. But yeah, I like Daniel Craig as an actor. And number one, it goes at a fast pace. I cannot say this film is boring. I think when I did the commentary, I don't know if I think when I sat down and I was able to watch it with the headphones all the way up and really center on it while I having a comment on it, like as I'm commenting on it and trying to think of stuff to say, it's like I don't know what else to say about it, because it's a plot that is a bit clunky, but at the same time the movie's going so fast, the pacing goes faster than the plot does, as in something to do with a bad guy that's with this group called Quantum, probably because they couldn't call it Spectre because they didn't own the rights for Spectre. It wasn't until later that I believe they got the rights to Spectre, because I think Spectre was a different part, and then they owned another part of James Bond. I believe that's the case, because Quantum then became Spectre later on. And this guy's working with this Bolivian general that was thrown out. And this guy's going to get this Bolivian general back into power. And in return, he's going to get this desert location where then he's going to take control and have the monopoly of the water. Get the power to have the whole monopoly of water and up that price and control the water supply. And if he does it there, then it could continue in other places. It doesn't sound like the most interesting, original, exhilarating plot. That's what I mean by that. So when you try to talk about it in a commentary, it's like, okay, this plot isn't the best. But I do at least appreciate the fact it is very short for a James Bond film. It is the shortest James Bond film. Like an hour and 40-some minutes. And like I said, I like Daniel Craig. I like the potential of the action scenes. Again, I wish it was not edited the way it did. The spastic, quick editing, Bourne style does not need to be part of James Bond. If the editing was like a John Wick film, this would have been a much better movie. And probably not as hated. Like, they would go out of the plots, meh. But if the action scenes had the right editing, now, that's Marc Forster. I think the editor, I don't know whose fault it is, actually. Was it Marc Forster, or I don't know. I would assume it's him because he's the director making those choices. And I can't think of another James Bond film that did that again. I think even Roger Moore himself, well, the James Bond himself said that it felt like a commercial for an action movie instead of an action movie. And I get what he means. Just like the opening car chase, it's like a lot of the actions, I see some like good stunts, and I see some good practical stuff, car flips, things of that nature, but it's done so quick that just, you almost can't get a sense of the geography. And again, that is a crippling flaw for the film. Again, people go, why don't you hate it? Because it went at a decent enough pace that it felt like every 10 minutes or less there was like another action scene. And like I said, I can't say I was bored with it. I liked the finale. I thought the finale was impressive, and I'll get to why I say it in a minute. Like I say, I like Daniel Craig as the lead. I like that they were making M, the Judi Dench character, a bit more developed to be an ally for Bond, where he's my agent, I trust him, and I feel as if they were making her more of an important character, those building blocks, which then get into later, especially in Skyfall, that she... It's not that she didn't care about Bond and like the Pierce Brosnan films, but I felt like there's these nudges that are giving her a bit more... That, hey, he's my agent, I care about him, blah, blah, blah. I think the stuff between Daniel Craig and... As much as I love the Pierce Brosnan films, I think Daniel Craig and Judi Dench work better together. Because I think they give the two of them a bit more back and forth of interest. And I like the Judi Dench, Daniel Craig, their bond that was showcased in his movies. I thought that was an interesting choice. Plus Judi Dench, of course, is a great actress. There are times where the editing I could deal with, like after the opening scene of the car chase. It's also a direct sequel, I should say, to Casino Royale. Not too many movies are a direct sequel to the previous film. A lot of times they have like an action scene that has nothing to do with the proceedings, and then boom, we get the opening titles, and then we go on, what's the mission? What do we need to do? Who do we need to stop? This was a time where, no, we're going to make a sequel to Casino Royale. From the end of the previous film, Mr. White, now he's got him in the trunk of a car, he's going off. So I liked a bit of that continuity, so I felt like the previous film mattered. I do like that bit. I do like that direction. May feel a bit different. After that car chase, they try to interrogate this guy. We have people everywhere, and he's right because one of M's bodyguard, Judi Dench's bodyguard, tries to kill them. And I do like the foot chase. Again, the editing I wish was fixed. I wish there was a way to fix it. Because I just see some really good stunt work. Rooftop jumping from one to the other, both jumping through the skylight. They're tangled in this construction on ropes and they're going back and forth, trying to fight each other. I just see some good stunt work. And there's some nice looking shots. I like the idea, or at least some good looking idea. I know that doesn't make sense, but I like the idea of they're both hanging from ropes and one's up high and one's low and they're both trying to get these guns and who can get it first. It's almost like a weird way of a quick draw and then James Bond gets it, goes up, gets the guy. And then he goes to this hotel room and I like the close combat fight that happens. Pretty brutal, back and forth. Like, that editing wasn't too bad. Like, I could deal with that editing during that fight scene. I thought there's some nice brutal hits in there. As much as you can without an R rating, of course. Other moments I like, I actually don't mind. I know I've disliked her in other movies, but I didn't mind this Camille character played by Olga. I forget her last name. I didn't really care for her in some of the other movies I've seen her in, but maybe that's because of the writing. But here, I didn't mind her acting wise. I like when James Bond's trying to get to her. There's this guy on a motorcycle, and Daniel Craig just does this and flips the guy off his motorcycle. I thought that was a fun, cool moment. And like I said, because it's such a short running time and they had a good set of action scenes, it felt like it wasn't too long until another action scene happened. Because he follows a girl and then he gets to a boat chase. And like I said, if the editing was like in Skyfall and in other older James Bond films, the plot would get a shrug. I'll agree with you on that, but again, that's the crippling flaw. I keep repeating it because that's the bottom dollar on this one. Some of the supporting actors I recognize: Jeffrey Wright, who plays the CIA ally Felix. One guy did not even realize he was in this. David Harbour is in this as the other CIA guy. He's Greg Beam, the CIA section chief, has his thick mustache. Of course, David Harbour, he was in Stranger Things. He was in Violent Night, which I did like that film. The Hellboy remake. He's in this, and I'm like, that guy wait, holy shit. Huh. Wow, I didn't know he was in this. This is well before all this other stuff. Damn. There's this bit that happens in the opera, and that's a perfect example of the awful editing. Perfect example of it. Where it's supposed to cut between shootouts at this opera that's part of the show to James Bond going down the stairs, and there's the real bad guys ready to pull the guns and shoot him. And the way it goes back and forth, it gets confusing, and it didn't need to be that way. It did not. I don't know why someone behind the scenes did not look at this and go, why are you doing this? This is not good. What are you doing? With all the times people meddle with movies, no one wanted to meddle. Now, I know this was during the writer's strike. Was this part of an editing strike as well? I don't think there was an editor's strike. So do that shit. Giancarlo Giannini's in this. He was in the previous film, Casino Royale. I remember him as a detective in Hannibal, Anthony Hopkins' film. At one point, there's an action scene with a plane that crashes. I do like the finale. The finale takes place in this big motel, I should say hotel, in the middle of the desert, where James Bond gets in and shooting the bad guys. the reason I like this finale is how they deal with the explosions are pretty impressive, even today's age. Most of it looks practical. There's some shots I go, how the fuck did they do that? Like, there's a bit where there's these little explosive things around, and an explosion happens, and there's a guy running by this glass, and it's done in slow mo, and you see the fire just blowing up the glass as this guy's running away from it, kind of towards the camera like this, like, and the glass like over here blowing up. And there's bits where James Bond's fighting the bad guy, and you see these big explosions behind them in the same shot. And there's a bit like James Bond's fighting the guy, and the explosion like pushes him back over here. I'm like, wow, this is. I mean, there's explosive finales, and then there's this. I did like those technical aspects. I appreciate the people that put hard work into that. I do. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I even don't mind the little detail where he's got the girl covered as kind of like reminding the audience about when he had the girl or was trying to save the girl in Casino Royale. And there's a thought process in his head that he might shoot the girl so that she doesn't burn to death. Because the whole background of Camille, the character's story is that her family was burned by this Bolivian piece of shit general. And then she gets revenge on him. But he's able to blow out a hole. And he's able to find later on the guy that fucked over the girl in the previous film and bring him in. Judi Dench and Daniel Craig have more of a level of understanding with each other. I don't mind the opening title song. It's not a favorite of mine, but I've heard much worse. I like it better than where the fuck was that No Time to Die one and other stuff. Spectre. I like the opening credits as well. Usually those are pretty stylish. And I like the fact it's just one of those things I don't rewatch it a lot. It's not in my top 10 James Bond films. Like I said, I would put Casino Royale and Skyfall above this. And many others. License to Kill, Spy or Love Me. At the same time, at the very least, it wasn't boring. It had a couple of good technical aspects during his action scenes that's hampered by sadly the spastic bad editing. I like some of the supporting actors like Jeffrey Wright and Giancarlo Giannini and Judi Dench had some. It was nice to see them in there. Like I said, I like Daniel Craig. I wouldn't say he's my favorite Bond, but he's up there. And at least it wasn't boring. I know this seems like faint praise, but it's praise nonetheless. Like I said, the plot is very meh, and the editing is very what the fuck. But like I said, I can't hate the film. It's at the very least a time waster. But that's just me. So with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.